It gives us great pleasure to welcome Martin Walker to our meeting tonight.
Thank you, Brian. And as I mentioned, this is my 6th trip here, 5 with postcards and 1 with the MI Centenary last year. And tonight was supposed to wrap it all up when I was going to look at the things that hadn't been shown before, because that's been Brian's particular concern, is I've just shown the same things again and again and again. I can guarantee you there is no repeats in tonight's show at all. But trying to work out a theme for it was a little bit difficult, because, and just saying it's the leftovers was also a bit demeaning to some of the cards, because there's some good cards on show tonight for everyone to enjoy. So there we go. So the first time I was here was in 2013 when I gave an introductory talk on collecting postcards, and particularly collecting postcards of Gawler. So what I thought I would do tonight is update and expand on the different topics that I've covered thus far, and then end up with a train trip around Gawler at the end there, just to show some of the nicer things that were there but just didn't really fit in anything else that I've given thought to. So one of the new bits of information that's been found since then was the J. Fletcher Rogers, who had a store in Murray Street. In September 1906, the Critic newspaper did a special supplement on Gawler, and if you haven't seen it, download it from the National Library's Trove website, because it's quite brilliant, and there are a lot of good pictures of Gawler businesses and the like in it, and a lot of information about those businesses. But what I didn't realise until I studied it is that some of the photographs that were in that Critic article were reproduced as postcards, and I had quite a few of them, and some of them I've actually shown before, but the ones I haven't shown before, there's this little group here, the Trambridge. And so they're all black and white printed cards that have then been coloured over the top. And the Critic, like these postcards, was done by Varden printers in Adelaide at the time. So, not the world's greatest quality postcards, I'll admit. South Parra River. And keep thinking that perhaps a journey up and down the 2 rivers of Gawler would also make a good evening, because there's lots of views along those rivers. The Barossa Reservoir, of the Gawler Waterworks, so there's also quite a number of views off that particular area. And the final one I'm showing tonight is the railway station. And I was surprised to see that I would have about 20 views of Gawler railway station, some of which are just similar, the same, or the same photograph reproduced a different series of cards. And there'll be another selection of views of the railway station coming up later. Also on that first night I mentioned about a set of cards that were overprinted with the verses of Song of Australia, and here's the newspaper ad from Rebecks, who were sending those cards, which told us that there were 5 views of Gawler, each with a verse of the Song of Australia, and there were another 30 decorative cards also with the various verses of Song of Australia on it. And at that point in time I had seen 1 card. I can now double that and tell you I've seen 2 cards. So since I've been collecting for 40 years, if I live to 700 I should get the whole set one day. But that is just another view of the Gawler railway station, overprinted with the Song of Australia. So now I know what I'm looking for. Hopefully they'll come up a bit more frequently than once every 20 years. Gawler, of course, features in a lot of wider series of postcards of South Australian or even international views, and so occasionally you'll get a Gawler picture amongst the group. And this is from a card that was produced about in 1911 from a series done by the State Tourist Bureau and the Intelligence Office of the South Australian Government. And it just is simply a roadside view somewhere near Gawler. Anybody recognise the background?
No.
Postcards, of course, weren't confined to the golden age of the Edwardian period, and they've still been produced today. But between the wars there were really very few picture postcards done, and they sort of picked up again as prosperity picked up again in the 1950s. Now the Gawler photographers merchants were doing photographic postcards for country towns all across South Australia, and of course Gawler was no exception, and they had quite a few of those views. I have used some of these views, some of the merchants' views in other talks, but the group I'm showing you here tonight have not been featured in any of the previous talks. So a very familiar view across the road from here. The Milling Bridge, of course, as I said, will feature in a trip down the rivers. The convent, just down the road from here also. There's one there next to the entrance to the Gawler Primary School.
Currently up for sale.
Yeah, currently up for sale because the poor Zizamoos are no more. So, yes, it's a big building with a big family in it for many years. The old Hutchinson Hospital. One of the views of Gawler Primary School. Another view of Gawler Primary School, and I'm sort of thinking if these were in 1950s, some of those kids may be in this room tonight. I don't know. Yes.
On the girl on the standing on the hill looking back.
Oh yes.
Neville Riggs was there, Trent McLean.
A pair of cards here for the vertical format and the McKinley Monument and the old Presbyterian Church. And you mentioned before about Charles Sturt. I have used the view, there is a view of the old Charles Sturt Monument in this set, which is featured previously. The Faux down the road at the Catholic Church. And that just about over the last 6 years you're now seeing all the views from that series of cards that were done in the 1950s. 1960s and 70s there were cards done, but they're fairly few and far between, and I think that's largely because they're either not yet old enough to be coming into the market as postcard collectors, or they went overseas, or they haven't been saved like the old Edwardian ones. So you'll find the cards from the 1960s, 70s and 80s are far more difficult to get than the cards from 1910. So there's a publisher called A.E. Pitt, published cards for all around Australia. Pitt cards he used to trade under, and when he passed away they were bought by a company called Souvenirs Australia, and this is one of two views that were done in the 1970s, Pitt cards, and of course the post office. Now, George Aldridge is a well-known sketch artist in Gawler, and he features in two series of cards, which is basically things he did before he left Gawler and things he did since he came back. And I've seen two views probably dating from the 1980s. It's a bit hard to tell because I've never seen a used card with a date on it, with sketches by George. And they're published by, well, calling themselves Shovel and Bull, so I don't know where that print house is. But here is one of the old Swinbridge structures, and here is another Tortola house. And I think George is a very accomplished sketch artist. Another sketch artist was Doug Petty. Some of you may remember Doug when he worked with the Bunyip. He was their advertising, I don't think he was their advertising manager for about 10 years. And you may recall the real estate pages in those days, instead of having pictures of the houses, would quite often have a line sketch of the house, and that was all of Doug's work. However, he wasn't a great sketch artist. He used to actually line draw over the tops of the photographs and bleach out the photograph to be left with a line drawing, and I suspect that's what he's done with this set of cards. There's 6 in this set, 2 have been shown before, and here are the other 4. Doug did all of his work on the kitchen table, so he called his business KT Graphics. Once again, Catholic Church, Tortola House, very prominent and common views, Bottoms Road. And I seem to have moved on too quickly here. Alright. Another series of cards that were done by the Gawler Bunyip, and these date from around 2001. And there was 1,500 of each of these printed, 6 views, a couple of which I've used before. And that features the lace ironwork, cast ironwork or raw ironwork, which is so distinctive to Gawler, with many of the public buildings and homes still displaying it quite prominently. So that's one of the houses, and the other being the ironwork at the Gawler railway station. And the producers, we have now another set of cards with views or sketches by George Aldridge, and someone might be able to help me. I don't know if these were done by the council or by the information centre, but having the coat of arms on them suggests there was something official about it.
They were done by the visitor information centre.
Information centre, yes.
There's a number of them hanging in the toilets there.
Men's toilet.
Yeah, there's a,
Yes. I might have to pay a visit on Saturday when I'm nearby.
some time ago,
Yes.
they did reproduce some postcard size ones. The ones that are in the toilets are A3.
The sketches. Yeah.
But in the visitor centre itself, there are some postcards as well.
Yes, I bought these in the visitor centre. I have used one before in another talk, and here are some others from that particular series. So you can probably get the theme. It probably dates back to the 3-day event, having a ride in the back of the Portaloo. A tribute to James Martin and his farm machinery. The Gawler Cup, which was appropriate, being only last week. And the last one that many of us could probably relate to, about the service in Gawler.
Much better in the saloon bar.
Yes. There are some modern cards, and once again, you know, I probably visit the visitor centre every 6 months just to see what's new and to keep my collection up to date. And I just don't know who did these, and in fact, they're sold as postcards, but there's no postcard back on them as such. They're actually photographs without captioned. Although the writing is extremely small, you can see at the bottom corner here. So this one's Dead Man's Pass. And a couple more tourist views, the Moreton Bay Figs in Apex Park and the Gawler Railway Station again. Now, still dating back to 2013, I gave a talk on photographic postcards, and for most postcard collectors, they really like photographic postcards, particularly when they show scenes of events and, you know, historic events that have happened in the particular towns that interest them. But a lot of my photographic postcards are all done by merchants, and they're all family groups and houses, and as Margaret will tell you, the most frustrating thing to a researcher is having a photograph without any details to go with it and nothing written on the back. So another reminder to urge people to write on the back of their photographs what they depict. This place, no idea where it is, but it's merchants produce photographic postcards. Now, last night on the train home, I went through Paul Barnett's 800 photographs of Gawler houses from that website, and this is particularly distinctive because it's got a side entrance on this particular villa, and there were two houses that came up that looked very much like it, and one was 14th Street, and the other is 9 Lyndock Road, and I think it's actually 9 Lyndock Road. So I had a good look at Google Maps today and had a look at the side of the building, which is quite visible on Google Maps, and the brickwork matches, the linings matching, the pointing matches. So
That's Daly Street down here.
Yeah, yes, it's the corner of Lyndock Road and Daly Street, so I've got a big blow up of that once again when I'm in town on Saturday morning. I want to walk up the hill and have a really good examination of it.
They have changed some of the little knobs and that on the roof, but the gables are definitely the same.
Yeah. And I went through even the air vents around the top of the walls are in the same positions. Another card, photographic card. This one's marked Orange Grove. Now this is a building somewhere near the Gawler railway station, and I think it's one of those that's opposite the railway station. This was written on the back of this one because it was sent, was best wishes for Christmas 1905, WGP.
It's that big place on the corner by the railroad where they
Yeah.
the railway crossing.
I looked at that, and I can't see the place with the sort of conical spire on it.
Orange Grove.
Yeah, it may well be.
That railway terrace.
Yes.
No,
Hey?
Barnet Road. Yes. So W.G. Payne has a few entries in the Gawler budget. He lived in this particular residence for 30 years. It was sold in 1980 to either Noack or Noski Brothers. The spellings vary in the different editions of the Bunyip that you read. And the grounds were used for many church, and he was particularly involved with the Congregational Church, and also used for a lot of charity events. And if you look closely in the front there, it's a bit hard to tell on the blow up, and there's actually a group of young ladies sort of laid in the shade of the tree there. So that may well be one of the events that he hosted. And this particular house, the card is written on the back of there to say it's the residence of Mr. and Mrs. J. Roger. And J. Roger was a butcher at Gawler at this particular time. And I looked up the Gawler directory, and of course they give the address of his shop, but they don't give the address of his residence. So yes, lots of byways of history that you come to sudden dead ends with. Another photographic card is the Gawler Central's club rooms, with the old when the grandstand was still on the top of the roof. And of course the grandstand got pulled down because it became unsafe, but the rest of the building is still quite sound and in current use.
That'll be about 1920.
Maybe a bit later with the car. Of course, a lot of photographs were turned into cards, which were then still mass-produced and sold off. So, once again, St George's across the road, replete with its sort of recently added tower, which was added in 1909. So you can sort of easily date St George's cards to before and after tower. But whenever you get a high point in a town, it's always tempting to get pictures from the high point to get the bird's eye view. And there are quite a number of cards showing the views from the four sides of the town. This is one looking southeast. And I've had a look around. Some of those I reckon every one of those buildings that's visible there is still
there. Yep.
Yes. And this brings me to another topic. I mean, Churchill may be a good topic for one night. The architecture in there. Here we have a similar view looking east. And of course, these are buildings just out the front here. And one looking west, further down Callan Street, looking towards the Catholic Church, and of course you can see the primary school and the buildings on the side there, all of which are still there. Now, I was having a good look at this view of the church on Adelaide Road to see whether the monument was in front of it or not, because if the monument's there, it's after 1921. But I'm thinking that
the monument's around the corner.
Around the corner, so you won't see.
No, you wouldn't see the monument.
But that big crack in that wall is still there.
Yeah.
It's been there a long time. Yes. And of course, I suppose distinctive there, of course, are the poles with the telegraph and telephone lines on them.
About 1920.
I think that's about right.
And the south hall is over on. You can see the south hall the other side.
Another view of the Milling Bridge. It's one probably dating about 1940, I think. After photographic cards, the other cards which are in high demand and by collectors are advertising postcards for their various things. They're still used now, but I'm actually most disappointed I haven't seen any campaign postcards for the candidates for the Gawler elections. If you're a collector of small means, the best place to find stuff is usually the rubbish bin outside the boxes at the post office. I've not found any cards for this year's election. Lots of leaflets are all the same. And of course, Lindy Jane doing little puppets at Coles. What's that? 12 years? 11 years ago now. Robinson's Foundry near the railway station, Britannia Foundry, overprinted a lot of postcards of can only think they bought up a bunch of leftovers. And, so we have a bit of text. We have a picture of the old exhibition building in Adelaide, and we have a block showing all of their ploughshares. It's given away as an advertising and promotional card. And of course, one of Gawler's other favourite manufacturers of farm machinery is May Brothers, and of course this is their famous harvester. And these cards are very difficult to find and very sought after. Early farm machinery material. The Cloud's Daughters, card advertising the Cloud's Daughters. The card was produced by a gentleman called John Cammerman at Williamstown, who does a lot of cards for the Rossi Valley area. And this one in particular, I don't know if this is one he's done by himself, but it's certainly got the Channel 9 logo on the back, promoting that particular show. There's another similar card of the hotel at Freeling, the Gawler Hotel. Comes in that same series. Now, a few years ago, Gawler had a historic walking trail, and you can still see the vestiges of the signs around that trail. And there was a set of 6 cards of those. Some of these I've used in previous talks, but another one at Tortola House, which hasn't been shown before here. And these
Paul Westerman says it's Tortula. Tortula, even though it's spelled Tortola. Tortula.
And the cards were produced by a Ballarat printer called F.W. Niven, who did cards similar to this for businesses all across Australia. And there are actually people who only collect cards produced by F.W. Niven. They're extremely sought after. And there has been some of these on eBay recently, and every one of them's gone for over $150. Yes. So they're the updates from 2013. 2014, for the onset of World War I did just a whole evening on views of Gawler and Gawler's assistance with the Great War. After that one, I was lucky enough to buy a collection of cards with even more views, which featured in the 2015 talk on events. But here's a new one, which turned up, which of course shows all the cadets who they used to camp in the grandstands there in their sleeping bags and blankets. And one year it poured with rain, they all got flooded out and got soaking wet. And this is perhaps that year. A couple of new views of the visit of General Powell. General Powell was a French soldier, or a French general. He was actually, when he came to Gawler, he was 70 years old. He was actually a veteran of the Franco-Prussian War, who got called back into service at the outbreak of the World War I, had a disastrous 2 years leading troops in France, and they sort of pensioned him off and gave him promotional jobs. And one of those promotional jobs was to bring a trade delegation and a delegation of soldiers to the South Pacific. And en route, they toured Australia and thanked places around Australia.
I think that was 1917.
It was 1918.
1918.
Yes. So that was the street parade, and here's a view that I haven't seen. It's a nice close-up view of the French soldiers being presented there by the mayor to the crowd on Murray Street. So those cards only turned up 3 months ago. One thing I've been looking for years is actually one of these field service postcards written by Gawler soldiers sent to Gawler. This one is a recent addition to the collection. It's sent initially to Williston, then to Gawler South. I think the name is very difficult to read. It's where the signature is. It's either McMallen, something like that. I just can't make it out. It may even be Matthews. I've been through the World War I nominal rolls with anything that looks like that, and I just cannot find anything. So sadly, he may remain a mystery unless we find something else from the Tombs correspondence, which might contain another letter from the gentleman. 2015, we gave a talk on particular events, especially sporting events, by request of Robert Laidlaw. We found another view of Lady Bridges giving a speech at the ceremony for the laying of the foundation stone of the maternity ward at the Hutchinson Hospital, which was in 1926. This card eluded me for a while. The sign in the wheelbarrow says Forbes Warren, so I had to do a bit of really good intensive research on the Bunyip and other newspapers. Now, Forbes Warren turns out to be a gospel tent mission which toured around Australian country towns and some of the capital cities in 1926. And the two gentlemen were A.E. Forbes, who was a preacher. At the time he was a lay preacher, but he became a reverend. And John Warren, who was a Cornishman man, had the voice of the Cornishman, and a wonderful singer apparently, according to newspaper reports. And they used to lead the evangelical meetings in tents. So this is obviously those gentlemen there clearing a site for one of their tents here in Gawler. And they were here for about 2 weeks in March 1926. There's a few reports in the Bunyip of how well received they were. Perhaps one of the most photographed events is the 1917 flood. So here is yet another view of the 1917 flood. I have used a few of those before. Sporting events. A few Gawler football teams which may not seem familiar to everyone nowadays. The Gawler Ramblers, and the football tells us that this is the 1911 Premiership team. Hard to find any information on the Gawler Ramblers. Maybe Robert might be able to throw some light on it. You'll notice that here they're all in hooped jumpers, except for one gentleman is in stripes, or two gentlemen in stripes. And the following year, in 1912, completely different jumper. And there's a note on the back of one of these cars that tells us that that was a red jumper with a white star. And again, another view of Gawler Ramblers Club from a different year. And here we have a mixture of the hoops and the stars. So they're all probably just prior to World War I. 1925, we had the Gawler Rovers Football Club. There's a group of them there. And thankfully, the person who had this card wrote on the back and named all the players. So there's a few well-known Gawler names there. And I think this card has come from the estate from a gentleman called Walter Taylor. And there are some Taylors amongst those names here. Now, this is a long bow to call them events, but if anybody lived near a ham radio enthusiast and had all their TV reception mucked up, well, there was a few of them in Gawler, and they used to have these things called QSL postcards. And what they used to do with these is that when they made contact with somebody else in the world, they would write out the details of their connection and fill in the postcard and send it to the person they've made contact with, and they could be anywhere in the world. And this gentleman here, so this is Sir Wesley Duncan, who's in King Street. We have another one here for Mr. Dorr in East Terrace.
Oh, right.
Yes. And another one here for Mr. Hutchins, who was at Williston. And they're all from the 1950s, these cards. So these cards do start around about the 1920s. And they're quite fascinating if you can sort of get onto a collection of these things, and they have cards from all around the world, from fellow radio hams that they've made contact with. In 2016, we went up and down Murray Street looking at all the different scenes, and here's a few more views that weren't used on that particular evening. In fact, only one view, another one from the Marchant series showing Murray Street and the Crosby's building there, and so mainly the buildings on the west side looking up Murray Street. Right, last year we gave the postcards a bit of a rest, but there were postcards still involved when I spoke about the centenary of the first airmail. And what we did as a souvenir last year was we issued a colourised version of the 1917 card, which was very well received and quite popular, which was pleasing because we managed to recover our costs and make a bit of money for the club. The Airmail Society that I'm also a member of celebrates its 50th anniversary this year, so we did 2 souvenir postcards for that, one being for the first event in 1969 that they were involved with, being the 50th anniversary then of the England-Australia Vickers Vimy flight, and the last one being the event we did last year. It's a view of the Oster that carried the commemorative airmail superimposed with that. I was looking at other themes with some of the cards that remained, and I thought, well, up and down the rivers is a theme, Churchill was a theme, I have a lot of really nice cards showing the railways around and through Gawler, and some quite spectacular views of the Gawler railway station, and with the carriages in the front of there. So obviously the expectant crowd of taxi drivers, passage wagons, and horse-drawn tram awaiting the arrival of a train. It's probably one of the clearest views I've got of the station. It's a really nice black and white postcard, photographic postcard of the time, and the detail in it is quite nice when you look at it with the glass. The date is a guess of mine, about 1904. That's sort of based on similar cards of similar quality that I've seen, where I do know the dates of them. Similar dating on this one, about 1906, showing a good view from the top of the goods shed that used to be at the railway station. Looking there, is busy with with a passenger train coming through and an engine shunting a few goods wagons.
Was that not taken from Victoria Mill? See, the goods shed might not be that high, but that's pretty high up, isn't it?
Yes, but it's Victoria buildings looking from a different. We'd be looking from a different angle,
Yeah,
direction.
Yeah.
Yeah. And what also fascinates me about this is the background, how sparsely populated the area behind that is. There's now a lot of houses and homes sort of between there and Adelaide Road, which are just weren't there then. I'll draw your attention to the big tree on the platform, and here it's a stump, just the trunk of the tree. So obviously this card is after the other one in times of chronology. Once again, a very busy scene with several trains all converging in the station at once. So it just shows you what a big busy place Gawler was. It's a thoroughfare for trains going both east to Angaston and north to Burra and Clare. Now I might seek the help of the group here. There's another view of the railway station, but the gardens in the front with the picket fence around them have some difficulty dating accurately. I would say it's 30s to 50s.
All that was cleared away by May Brothers to make room for harvesters when he was building them in such numbers. He needed a space to keep them.
So they go back to 1900.
So you're saying that's probably prior to 1905?
Yeah.
Mm.
Well, that presents a problem because this next card has got more picket fences, so maybe they put them back again after May Brothers had gone. And this is sort of 1950s going by the stock, the photographic stock it's on. And the writing is on the back.
Gardens were further to the left.
Yes.
East.
Yes. Obviously not the busy station depicted there.
And that was the time, if you just go back, that was the time when there was the underground tunnel from the left-hand side over to Railway Terrace on the previous photo. Now there's a walking track across, whereas before it was an underground tunnel all the way across.
That's taken from the overway bridges.
Oh,
No.
not close. I might have had a good lens on it, but it's a lot closer. I think it's a lot closer to the bridge.
There was a signal tower inside the rail yards before the bridge,
Yes.
where you could climb up, have a little thing they could stand on.
Yes.
Platform.
Yes, that's right. There used to be a water.
And we are still hopeful that that canopy will be reinstated. That's work in progress.
Well, I actually shared a train ride with the mayor to Adelaide one morning, and she wasn't very hopeful at all that the electrification will probably see the end of that. But
It was called a pledge.
there's always, yes.
It's called a pledge.
That might be for the diesel trains that still run on the line.
Some of your earlier postcards in actual fact showed a footbridge by the signal box that got you across.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
And
That's a lovely one.
as I said, These two cards came together from the same source. They have the same writing on the back, so they're of similar age. And of course, the train pulled by that loco is not prior to 1905. Now, the message on the back of this card is actually just as interesting as the view itself. And written on the back of this card, so there's a message saying, "This is the Angaston to Adelaide train passing midway between Gawler and North Gawler stations, opposite Holden's Bridge, and just before the crossing of the Girder Bridge over the Parrot." So that would place that area to the left of the train where the netball courts are now, in that particular area there. But Holden's Bridge, and I've seen it spelt like the country, and I've also seen Poland spelt P-O-L-E-N. I think made his own little footbridge across the river there, just below where the netball courts are now. And then this card is dated April 1913, so it's quite early, since that line was only opened in 1909. And we have a pair of real rail cards going over the other viaduct. And that could be anywhere from late 1920s to about 1950s when these particular rail cars ran. Just have a nice, you go to the museum, they've got some there that have a nice green and cream livery. They look quite good. And that card is from Railmac Productions, who do a lot of the cards for the Port Dock Museum. And it's actually dated first. It says that the photo was taken on the 1st of January 1999, which was a bit earlier than I thought with that particular type of card. There we are. Another photographic postcard of the railway theme is loading wheat bags somewhere on the siding of the Gawler hinterland. It doesn't precisely say where, but it does say it's the 1920 harvest, which gives it a good date. Now, a view that will be familiar to many of us, the old Penrith stone trains that used to come through twice a day, I think. But no more, and this is a railway museum postcard, and my guess of the date of that is somewhere in the probably early mid-1980s. And the view, it says, is probably a bit of line just beyond Linddock. It's a train that comes along the hill's face and turns west. The F-class tank engines. This is a card that was published in Great Britain. It's from a huge series of cards showing steam locomotives from all around the world. And this is the South Australian example. And 167, I looked it up, is actually not a Gawler one, it's an Islington one, but it was the very first F-class engine built in South Australia, and then all the rest copied this one. And so number 168 was built at the Phoenix Foundry, and then there's a whole series of them that were built either at Phoenix Foundry or at Islington. Of course, the one we're all familiar with is the one here that was variously described as Rotary Park or Lions Park on cards that I've got of this locomotive before it got shifted to the Gawler railway station. And of course, this is one where there's some contention that they don't know whether it's engine number 177 with a 245 plate on it, or actually engine 245. But for James Martin fans, it's significant because 177 was built at Islington and 245 was built in Gawler. So we'll have to believe it's 245. So that sort of brings you up to date with what I've shown before, and a little bit of a theme there on some ideas for future things that we can talk about. So we have been talking about, as I said, all the talks I've given here before, so there's been a few of them. And what happens in the next year and the year after, well, that's probably as much up to Brian as it is to me. But I would like to thank all the members of the history team for the invitation and the perseverance and the patience for putting up with me. And I hope you've all seen something that you haven't seen before and learned something that you haven't seen before. And I'll just leave you with this final card that probably tells you why I do what I do.
On behalf of the gathering here tonight, I want would like to thank you very much and congratulate you on the research you put into this. And I believe that you're actually getting better, so you have to do a 3 more, because I'm marking 99.4. So in the next couple of years, you'll have to get it perfect. But that was absolutely brilliant. I learned more tonight than I could learn anywhere else, at home watching TV or whatever. But once again, thank you very much for a really lovely presentation.
Good. Thank you, Roger.
Thank you, Martin.